Beloved, chosen one, stop everything. You are not here by accident. You didn't stumble onto this message while casually scrolling. Heaven paused your timeline, intercepted your moment, and whispered this into the stream of your life. Listen, you are not like the rest. You were never meant to blend in. You are marked. Since the very beginning, you've felt it, like a divine echo following you through every season, through every heartbreak, through every success and silence you've always known. Before you had words for it, before anyone explained what a calling was, before you could spell destiny, your spirit knew. It knew you were called. It knew you were set apart. You are not simply another name in the crowd. You are a flame in the wilderness, a trumpet in the silence. Heaven marked you long before you ever learned how to pray. They tried to label you, tried to fit you into their molds. But every attempt to make you normal failed miserably. Because God doesn't mark his warriors for normality, he marks them for glory. You were tattooed by divine purpose, not by public approval. You didn't come to fit in. You came to change the temperature in every room you enter. That is why it's never worked for you. That is why your soul itched in places where others found comfort. You're allergic to mediocrity. You are repelled by shallowness. Your spirit always demanded more depth, more truth, more fire. And now, the time has come to remember who you are. The shaking you feel inside isn't confusion. It's not anxiety. It's awakening. The time for playing small is over. This world doesn't need more copies, it needs the original version of you that heaven breathed into existence. Stop shrinking. Stop apologizing. Stop explaining your depth to people still sipping spiritual milk. You are not too much. You are exactly what this generation needs. You were marked for such a time as this. Not only have you been called, but you've been kept through storms that should have drowned you, kept through battles that should have killed your joy, kept through betrayals that should have turned your heart to stone. But here you are alive, burning, unexplainable, because when God marks someone, no devil in hell can erase that assignment. Let me say this with boldness: the pain wasn't pointless. The silence wasn't punishment. The delay wasn't denial. It was protection. It was preparation. You were hidden, not forgotten. Heaven has been forming you in secret while the world overlooked you in public. That loneliness, that strange season where nothing made sense, that was God's workshop. He was forging a weapon, and that weapon is you. As we read in Isaiah chapter 43, verse 2, when you walk through fire, you will not be burned. This isn't about ego. This is about identity. You are chosen. You are not common. You are not background noise in someone else's movie. You are the main character of a heaven-ordained storyline. It's time to own it. So now, I'm going to ask you to do something bold. If your spirit has been burning while reading this, if your chest has been pounding with the recognition that this is about you, then act like it. Comment 777 below. Not just as a reaction, but as a declaration, as a sign to heaven that you heard the call, that you're ready to be seen, ready to rise, ready to walk in everything that's been stirring inside you since childhood. Comment 777, because the final tribe is being gathered, and you're one of them, chosen one. You didn't arrive at your strength by accident. Your resilience was forged, not gifted. The truth is, You were made through the fire. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every moment you felt abandoned, it was all spiritual training. Heaven wasn't punishing you, it was preparing you. You've cried in places no one could see. You've prayed prayers that sounded more like groans than words. And still, you stood up, again and again. That's what makes you different. The devil thought the trauma would take you out, but it made you dangerous. You are not fragile. You are forged. And the weight you carry isn't weakness, it's evidence of what you've survived. There's a lie you've been told for too long, that pain disqualifies you, that if you were truly chosen, life wouldn't have been so hard. But that's not divine logic. Heaven doesn't call the comfortable. Heaven calls the crushed. It was your breaking that opened the vault to your anointing. You weren't picked despite your wounds. You were picked because of them. Your tears were holy. Your silence was prophetic. Even when you felt lost, heaven knew exactly where you were. Every step you took through pain was a step deeper into destiny. That loneliness you felt, it wasn't abandon, meant it was separation. God was separating you from the noise, the crowds, the counterfeit connections that would have distracted you from your mantle. While others celebrated popularity, you were being processed for purity. So yes, it hurt. It was supposed to. The oil you carry isn't cheap. It was crushed out of you in the midnight hours when no one was watching. But God saw, and He smiled, not because you suffered, but because you didn't quit, because the fire didn't consume you, because the rejection didn't harden you, because you kept your heart soft while walking through hell. That's why your presence unsettles people. They don't understand how someone who's been through so much can still shine. They can't comprehend how you radiate peace while carrying battle scars. You confuse darkness. You interrupt cycles. You break atmospheres. And you don't even try. You just walk in. And spirits start trembling. That's because you're not normal. You're a vessel of divine glory. People have called you too intense, too deep, too sensitive. But God calls you His weapon. You're not too much. You're just too anointed to be diluted. You don't fit in because you were never meant to. You weren't called to echo the world. You were called to speak from heaven. And the pain? It simply activated the volume of your voice. Paul reminds us in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 6, God raised us up with Christ and seated us with Him in the heavenly realms. You see, this isn't about surviving anymore. This is about reigning. You've graduated from wilderness school. The old youth, one who tolerated abuse, settled for crumbs, kept peace at the cost of your purpose, that version is gone, buried. You've outgrown every room that required your silence to stay accepted. Your spirit refuses to shrink again. It remembers what it cost to expand in the first place. There's still a scar or two that itches when the past is triggered. That's normal. But don't mistake the sting of memory for a setback. You're not going backward. You're just being reminded of how far you've come. And more importantly, of how much more is ahead. Because even now, heaven is drawing the map in your spiritone that doesn't lead to more struggle, but to fulfillment. The pieces are coming together. And no, you don't need to force connections anymore. You don't need to beg people to understand you. Those who carry the same fire will find you. God is sending destiny-aligned people. You won't have to shrink to be loved. You won't have to explain your flame. They'll see it. And they'll know. The final tribe is gathering. And your survival was your entrance ticket. You weren't just spared. You were selected, not because of perfection, but because of position. You were willing to stay when others left, to wait when it was uncomfortable, to obey when it didn't make sense. Heaven saw all of that, and heaven is about to respond. But don't misunderstand. The pain didn't qualify you, but how you responded to it did. Anyone can suffer, but you worshipped through it. You believed through it. You held on when your hands were shaking. That's what separates the chosen from the comfortable. That's what makes you a threat to the kingdom of darkness. You didn't get bitter. You got deeper. You didn't harden. You healed. And in a world numbed by distractions and detours, your clarity is dangerous. You know what you're called to do, even if you don't have the full blueprint. Your yes is louder than your confusion, and that's enough for God to move. The storms were never proof of abandonment. They were indicators of destiny. No one attacks a nobody. The enemy saw what was inside you before you did. That's why the warfare started so early. You were targeted as a child, misunderstood as a teen, undervalued as an adult. But none of that changed your assignment. If anything, it confirmed it. You don't need a title. You don't need a stage. All you need is that quiet, unwavering, knowing that you were born to shift this generation. And you will, not because you strive, but because you stand, because when you walk into a room, heaven walks in with you. You've made it through the wilderness. You've survived the silence. And now, you're being positioned for visibility, not for vanity, but for victory. Because when the final tribe gathers, it won't be the loudest or the flashiest who lead. It will be the ones who bled in secret, who grew in shadows, who never stopped believing, and chosen one. That's you. Listen closely. Chosen. Anithi's moment is not a coincidence. You didn't land here by chance. And this isn't just another piece of content on your feed. This is divine interception. This is heaven speaking through the noise. Every second you've spent searching for clarity, aching for direction, questioning your sanity has led to this moment. This message is not an accident. It's an assignment. There's a reason you've always felt out of sync with your surroundings. A reason you've been unable to fully settle into what others called normal. Your spirit has been too alive, too tuned to the frequency of heaven, to ever feel at home in average. You've always sensed there was something more meaning, more mission, more to your identity than what the world handed you. And that instinct, it was divine. You weren't wrong. You were early. The world told you to calm down, to blend in, to stop caring so deeply. But God was whispering louder. Don't lose your fire. You were created to burn with purpose, not conform to patterns. And now, the signal in your soul is undeniable. This is the call. The one you've been waiting for. The reason your heart has never settled. The reason nothing else has satisfied. It was declared in Luke chapter 10, verse 19. I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions. You've been given authority, not borrowed, not conditional, not someday now. That's why you felt resistance. That's why it feels like every time you try to rise, something pulls at your ankles. Because the enemy recognizes what's on your life, essays your future, and it terrifies him. The enemy didn't fight you because you were weak. He fought you because you're a threat. He tried to convince you you're small. Because if you ever realized your true size in the spirit, You'd wreck his entire infrastructure. He wanted you confused, disoriented, questioning your identity. Because when a chosen one knows who they are, hell starts to shake. But now you're waking up. The confusion is lifting. The fog is clearing. You're not crazy. You're not lost. You're being called. And not just called to belong, but to lead, to disrupt, to build, to carry what others can't. You are an atmosphere shifter, a gatekeeper. You don't just walk into spaces, you bring heaven with you. Everything in your life has been orchestrated for alignment. The people who left, it was divine. The doors that shut, it was protection. The delay, it was timing. Because God wasn't just preparing things for you, He was preparing you for the things. And now, the preparation is aligning with opportunity. The inner stirring you feel is not anxiety. It's confirmation. Heaven is bearing witness with your spirit. You're not behind schedule. You're right on time for your calling. But listen carefully. The enemy is banking on your hesitation. He knows he can't destroy you. So he's trying to distract you. Don't fall for it. This is not the season to be double-minded. This is the moment to step forward. Even if your knees are trembling, you may not feel qualified. You may still feel bruised. But your authority doesn't rest on your emotions. It rests on your position in the Spirit. You are seated with Christ. You are covered in oil. You are backed by heaven. The only thing missing now is your movement. This message is a divine activation. It is not entertainment. It is confirmation. God is speaking clearly. I am calling my final tribe. I am gathering the ones who didn't quit when it got dark. The ones who stayed pure when temptation whispered. The ones who fought silent battles and never stopped praying. You are one of them. You know it in your bones. And now is your time to rise. The world doesn't need more influencers. It needs more intercessors. It needs more voices that carry weight. Not just volume. That's you. You carry the weight of glory. You carry the fire of alignment. And it's time to move like it. So, if your spirit is burning right now, if you feel the electricity of divine timing in your chest, don't scroll past. Let heaven know you're awake. Let darkness know you've decided. Comment below. Right now, I hear you. No, not for attention, for agreement, for alignment, for obedience. Because every time a chosen one steps into position, the earth shifts. Let heaven and hell both know you're not confused. You're not passive. You're responding to the call. Chosen one. There is a strength inside you that even you haven't fully met yet. A silent, burning power that has kept you walking when you wanted to collapse. You've fought giants that no one knew existed. You've stood in storms without witnesses, cried prayers that never made it into journals, and warred in the spirit while smiling on the outside. What you carry is not ordinary, it's sacred. This world has no category for people like you. That's why they've misunderstood you. That's why they've misread your silence as weakness, your distance as pride, your discernment as paranoia. But God knows the truth. You weren't avoiding people, you were protecting your oil. You weren't running from community, you were being refined in isolation. Your wilderness was not wasted. In fact, it was required. Because God always forms his most powerful warriors in hidden places. Moses had the backside of the desert. David had the sheep field. Elijah had the cave. And you had your silent seasons. The ones where you questioned your worth. where you doubted your own hearing, where you felt abandoned, and yet, somehow, you kept showing up. That is what qualifies you. Not your resume, not your titles, not your followers or your likes. What qualifies you is that you stayed faithful when no one was watching, that you kept praying when nothing changed, that you kept showing up to the battlefield even when the enemy kept whispering, "It's over." End of. But it wasn't over. It was only beginning, because every dark night, every lonely morning, every unanswered prayer was adding to the oil. You've been storing glory, carrying it in silence. And now, the pressure in your spirit isn't heaviness, it's destiny pushing to the surface. This is what people don't see. They don't know the price behind your peace, the journey behind your discernment, the tears behind your smile. But heaven knows, and heaven remembers. As we read in Psalm chapter 56, verse 8, "You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle." No, not one tear was wasted. Not one night was ignored. God was watching the whole time, not passively, intimately, actively, measuring your response, testing your posture. And now the oil is ready. And so are you. That's why the warfare increased recently. That's why things suddenly felt heavier, darker, more uncertain, right when you thought you had finally found your rhythm. Because the enemy always intensifies his attack right before a release. He senses it. He knows the sound of glory when it begins to rumble in the spirit. You've been feeling that pressure, not because something is wrong, but because something is about to break open. You are on the edge of divine acceleration, and the enemy is terrified, not of who you were, but of who you are about to become. You've outgrown old cycles. You've shed old skins, and now you are stepping into the full stature of your calling. No longer double-minded, no longer second-guessing yourself. You know too much. You've been through too much. There is no going back to smallness, nor retreat into spiritual silence. You've tasted purpose, and nothing else satisfies anymore. You are not the same person who entered the valley. You are not the same person who cried at that altar, wondering if God still remembered you. You are not the same soul who begged for clarity, feeling like heaven was mute. That version of you was refined in the fire, and you've come out as gold. It was never about applause. It was never about visibility. Your heart was always after God. And that's why He chose you. That's why He protected you from platforms that would have poisoned you too soon. That's why He delayed certain answers, not to punish you, but to prepare you. And now the weight of glory is resting on your shoulders, not as a burden, but as confirmation. You've carried glory in silence. You've warred without recognition. But heaven has recognized every sacrifice, and soon, the same spaces that once overlooked, you will be unable to ignore the fire you carry. Not because you're demanding attention, but because glory can't be hidden. Not anymore. It was never about being seen by people. It was always about being used by heaven. So when people ask you how you made it thou, you kept going. How you survived, what crushed, others just smile. Because they wouldn't understand. Even if you told them, they weren't there in the midnight hours. They didn't see the spiritual warfare in your bedroom. They didn't hear the groans of intercession. But God did. And He's about to speak loudly through you. Not with noise, but with weight, with presence, with fire, with clarity, with discernment. You are going to walk into rooms and shift the atmosphere without opening your mouth. You are going to be the answer to someone else's secret prayer. You are going to remind others that silence doesn't mean absence, that God forms his greatest weapons in the secret place. And you, chosen one, are his secret weapon. Chosen one. There's a reason the enemy has tried everything to keep you distracted, discouraged, and disconnected, because your alignment is dangerous. When a child of God aligns, everything shifts. Chains break. Generational curses snap. Atmospheres change. That's why the battle intensified the moment you started seeking clarity. The warfare wasn't random, it was reactive. Hell doesn't panic over passive Christians. Hell panics over aligned ones. And you're on the edge of becoming fully aligned with heaven. That's why the enemy wanted you delayed. Because delayed alignment is delayed impact. And the moment you align with your true identity, your calling, your anointing, your obedience, the ripple effect touches everyone connected to your name. Families get restored. Communities ignite. Territories awaken. You're not just stepping into purpose for yourself, you're dragging entire bloodlines into deliverance. The enemy knows what's at stake. That's why the battle wasn't just about you, was about the tribe that follows you. The ones assigned to your voice. The ones waiting on your yes. The ones whose freedom is tied to your obedience. And now, as you begin to stand fully in who you are, the resistance is proof of how much is about to shift. There's no more time to play small. No more rehearsing old pain. No more repeating cycles that keep your spirit caged. This is the hour of divine release. You've been loosed from what once held you. You are being summoned into clarity, conviction, and kingdom purpose. Isaías chapter 54, verse 17 declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." End. You've felt those weapons. The slander, the false accusations, the emotional attacks, but they didn't prosper because you're still here, breathing, burning, rising. And soon, you won't just survive, you'll soar. But listen, this isn't just about you knowing who you are. It's about moving like it. Heaven is not calling you to potential. Heaven is calling you to impact. What you carry isn't meant to stay inside you, it's meant to be released. The words you've been scared to speak, they carry deliverance. The message you've been sitting on, it carries breakthrough. The story you've buried under shame, it carries healing. Every day you hold back, someone else stays bound. Every moment you delay, someone else misses their moment of clarity. It's bigger than you now. You've been entrusted with too much to play it safe. That's why what you're listening to right now matters. This isn't motivational content. This is divine activation. These words are not here to entertain you. They're here to equip you. And if this message is stirring your spirit, if you feel the weight of God's hand pressing on your life, don't walk away unchanged. Now is the time to lean in. You are not meant to do this journey alone. God is raising up a remnant, a tribe of voices, warriors, builders, and restorers. And if your spirit is bearing witness, then you are part of that final tribe. This space is more than a message, it's a movement. So, if what you're hearing is confirming what you've been sensing in your spirit, stay connected. Like this video, not just to support, but to signal your agreement with heaven's call. Share it with someone else who you know is carrying silent fire. And make sure you're subscribed. Not for numbers, but for alignment. There are messages coming that will unlock the next layer of your walk. And if you feel led to sow into what God is doing here, do it with a joyful heart. Not under pressure, not out of guilt, but as an act of spiritual agreement. When you sow into what feeds your spirit, you're not giving to a screen, you're investing in oil. And this oil, it's breaking yokes. But hear this clearly, whether you give or not, whether you like or share, the word over your life remains. You are still chosen. You are still marked. You are still the one hell has feared since birth. But staying connected to prophetic voices, to burning altars like this, one helps you walk with sharper vision, steadier feet, and clearer direction. You're not weak. You're awakening. And as you rise, you will draw others with you, not by striving, but by simply standing in who God called you to be. You've spent enough time doubting yourself, enough time seeking validation from voices that never had the capacity to recognize you, enough time explaining your flame to people still carrying smoke. That season is over. You've crossed over now. You're entering the season of sudden alignment, divine appointments, strategic connections, supernatural clarity, and yes, provision. Heaven funds what it orders. God is not sending you into this next chapter empty-handed. He's sending you with glory, with oil, with backing. Walk like it, even if your hands are shaking, even if your voice trembles, even if you don't feel ready. Go anyway. Obedience is greater than comfort. Movement matters more than mastery. And you'll be surprised how heaven fills in the gaps once you say yes. You are not behind. You are not late. You are right on time. You are part of the final tribe, chosen one. This is the moment where something in your spirit has to shift. You've heard the whispers. You've felt the pull. But now the trumpet is sounding. This isn't the season to hesitate. This is the season to respond. You are standing at the edge of something eternal, a divine invitation wrapped in fire. God is calling his final tribe, not the flashy, not the famous, the faithful, the ones who've been forged in obscurity, the ones who learned to prophesy through pain, the ones who were shaped in rejection and refined in tears. He's calling the misfits, the warriors, the intercessors who wouldn't quit. You are not who they said you were. You are who heaven has always known you to be. You are part of the remnant. This moment right now was a threshold, and not everyone will cross it. Some will scroll past. Some will shake it off. Some will return to the noise. But you? Your spirit is trembling because you recognize what's happening. You feel heaven's eyes on you. You know deep down, this is the divine call you've been waiting for. It's happening. Right here. Right now. And this isn't about hype. It's about alignment. You've outgrown surface-level Christianity. You've outgrown empty declarations with no fire behind them. What you're hungry for is not applause. It's anointing. And heaven is ready to pour. But you must answer. This is the moment the final tribe begins to emerge, not with trumpets, but with tears. Not with glitter, but with glory. The ones heaven kept hidden are now being revealed. You were hidden not because you were forgotten, but because you were being preserved, prepared, protected. God never reveals power before time. He hides what he values. And you are treasure, not for display, but for deployment. And now your time has come. as it is written in Joel chapter 2, verse 28, "And it shall come to pass afterward, that I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy." That's what's being activated in you right now. Not just a word, but a prophetic release. You're being called to speak what heaven is saying, to move how heaven moves, to act as a representative of the realm that cannot be shaken. And this isn't about perfection. This is about positioning. God isn't calling the polished. He's calling the ready. And readiness doesn't look like having all the answers. It looks like having a heart that says, "Yes, Lord." That's what makes you dangerous to darkness. Not your eloquence, but your obedience. The enemy's greatest fear is not your past. It's your yes. Because he knows that one true yes from a chosen one will ripple into nations. That's why he's fought you for so long. That's why you've been through hell and still hear God. That's why he tried to bury your confidence and silence your voice. But what he forgot is, you don't belong to the past. You belong to prophecy. Everything that tried to kill you only proved your calling. Everything that tried to shut you down only revealed your volume. And now, you carry the kind of oil that doesn't just shine, it shakes. You are heaven's reply to a broken generation. You are God's interruption to darkness. This is not just about identity anymore. It's about deployment. You're not just being reminded who you are. You're being released into it. And if your spirit is trembling, if something in you is burning, breaking, and being rebuilt right now, then you know this word is for you. You don't need another sign. You are the sign. Your life is a living message, and the time to walk in it is now. So, take this moment. Don't let it slip by like all the others. Make a mark. Let heaven see your agreement. Let hell hear your resolve. Comment 999 below. This is your response to the call. A sign in the spirit that says, "I'm ready. Ready to align. Ready to rise. Ready to be seen." Sealed and sent. 999 is not a number. It's a signal that something has ended and something holy is beginning. Chosen one. God has not forgotten you. Even in your darkest hours, even in the silence that felt eternal, His eyes were still on you. Every breath you took when you wanted to quit, every tear you cried with no words left, He caught them all. You were never forsaken. You were hidden. Sometimes, heaven answers with silence, not because it's absent, but because it's watching. God was never ignoring your prayers. He was inspecting your posture. Would you trust Him when there was no visible breakthrough? Would you obey even when the reward was unseen? These were never delays. They were divine measurements. And you, beloved, passed every test that mattered. The enemy tried to convince you that nothing was happening, that your prayers were bouncing off the ceiling, that your intercession was meaningless. But all the while, heaven was building layer by layer, silently, steadily, deeply. You were being rooted. And now, what has been growing underground is about to break the surface. Heaven has not been idle. It's been intentional. Sometimes God withholds the stage to refine the voice. He withholds the platform to purify the message. He withholds the influence to protect the integrity of the oil. What you thought was being withheld was actually being multiplied in secret. And now, the appointed time is drawing near. The unveiling is coming not for your glory, but for His. Psalm chapter 34, verse 18 says, The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Oh, he was close the whole time. In the breakdown, in the heartbreak, in the cold silence of nights, where your only prayer was, God. Why? He didn't just watch, he held you. You just didn't see the hand because it was holding you from within. This is the mystery of the anointed. They often feel most abandoned when they're most covered. Because God teaches intimacy through isolation. He purifies motives in silence. He stretches capacity in hiddenness. And now you understand why it had to happen that way. You wouldn't be this sharp without the storm. You wouldn't carry this kind of discernment without the delay. You wouldn't have this level of oil without the crushing. Your purity was refined through pain. Your obedience was tested without an audience. Your faith was stretched without applause. And because of that, what you carry now cannot be stolen, mimicked, or counterfeited. The strength you have was not downloaded, it was earned in the Spirit through fire. And the authority you walk in was not given by Manit, was bestowed by heaven. This is what makes you unstoppable, not arrogance, not pride, but authentic process. You carry the scars of surrender, and when heaven sees those scars, it recognizes a warrior. You've graduated from hoping God loves you to knowing He's with you, from asking for confirmation to becoming confirmation for others, from surviving the valley to owning the mountain. Your voice carries weight now, not because it's loud, but because it's true, because it's been forged in prayer, in worship, in warfare. The people around you may not understand it. They may still treat you like the old version of you. That's okay. Let them. Your validation never came from them. Your promotion never needed their vote. You were chosen in the silence, approved in the secret place, commissioned by God's own voice. And now, nothing can reverse it. There are angels assigned to your journey. Doors no man can shut. Keys you didn't ask for, but were handed because of your endurance. You didn't climb into this moment. You were carried. And that's what makes it holy. Your life is not random. Every step was divine choreography. Every wrong turn still led you right. Every lost relationship preserved your purpose. What you thought was a breakdown was actually a redirection. And the timing? Perfect. You weren't late. You weren't forgotten. You were being prepared. And now, the world is about to see what heaven has always known about you. Chosen one. Take a breath. You're not striving anymore. You're receiving. You're not guessing anymore. You're moving with clarity. You're not searching anymore. You are the answer you've been looking for. Heaven has not forgotten. It has just been waiting for this exact moment. Chosen one. You've always sensed it even when you didn't have words for it. That weight on your chest. That trembling in your spirit when you walk into certain rooms. That sudden shift in atmosphere when you open your mouth. It's not emotional. It's not psychological. It's spiritual. You are heaven's weapon. You don't just carry light. You are light. You don't just say prayers. You carry the frequency of divine authority when you speak. When you declare, things shift. When you walk in, darkness reorganizes. Not because of your posture, but because of your presence. You carry the presence of the one who called you, and the enemy knows it. That's why your warfare has been intense. That's why even in your sleep, you felt attacked. Why relationships suddenly shift when your discernment sharpens. Why opportunities vanish right when you're about to step into them. It's because the weight you carry in the spirit realm causes disruption in every environment that isn't aligned with heaven. You've been a threat since the beginning. But don't misunderstand. Your authority doesn't come from striving. It comes from surrender. The reason demons flee isn't because you scream louder. It's because your heart is anchored deeper. You've built a history with God in secret. You've touched altars no one else saw. You've wept through worship when no music played. That intimacy cannot be faked. And now, your presence alone carries governmental weight in the spirit. This is why the enemy couldn't let you rest. Why you've battled so much in silence. Because the moment you realize what's inside you is the moment hell's schemes unravel. You are not just a believer, you're a builder. Not just a worshipper, you're a warrior. And that's why you can't stay hidden any longer. You've been disguised as ordinary. But heaven has always known better. You don't just attend atmospheres, you alter them. You've been trained not through seminars, but through silence, not through books, but through obedience. You don't carry borrowed language, you carry earned oil. Your mantle isn't decorative. It's destructive to every demonic structure around you. As it is written in Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 10, "See, I have this day set thee over the nations and over the kingdoms, to root out, and to pull down, and to destroy, and to throw down." That's what you've been sent to do. Not to impress people, but to dismantle systems, to speak against compromise, to break generational curses, to call people out of apathy, and yes, to stir the sleeping warriors awake. There are voices in you that haven't spoken yet. There are prayers in you that haven't been prayed yet. There are assignments that haven't even touched your hands. Why? Because heaven has been waiting for the full activation of your anointing. You've operated in glimpses, but now the fullness is approaching. The authority you've been moving in up to now, that was just the preview. Heaven is getting ready to release the next measure, not because you earned it, but because you endured, because you kept standing when others sat, because you kept showing up when you didn't feel anything, because you stayed clean when temptation whispered, because you didn't trade your crown for comfort. You've been found faithful. And now, the voice of the Lord over your life is about to thunder. Not in volume, but in clarity. You're going to start moving in revelation that feels like lightning. Doors are going to respond to your arrival, not because you knocked, but because heaven said, "Open." Your hands are not empty. Your steps are not random. You are on assignment. Even your pain was prophetic. It wasn't just something you went through, it was something that gave you language for the bound. That brokenness was necessary. It carved the capacity needed for the level of glory you now carry. And when you speak, others will recognize it not just because of how it sounds, but because of what it does to their spirit. You're not here to blend in. You're here to blaze trails, to build altars, to break silence. You're not an echo. You are a trumpet. The next season of your life isn't going to require more hustle. It's going to require more holiness, more surrender, more alignment, more sensitivity. Because the level of authority you're stepping into demands precision. You don't get to move like everyone else. You were marked to move differently. Even now, heaven is shifting things around you, repositioning people, closing doors, tightening circles. Why? Because what you carry is too rare to risk. God is jealous over you, not out of control, but out of divine protection. You don't belong to the crowd. You belong to the cloud. And clouds don't stay in one place, they move. So move with God. Don't look for confirmation from those who weren't assigned to you. Don't wait for applause. Move in silence. Move in oil. Move in obedience. And let heaven reveal you in its time. Because when heaven reveals a weapon, the world will never be the same. Chosen one. You must understand this truth clearly. Delay is disobedience. You've been called. You've been anointed. You've been warned, and now you are being summoned into obedience without hesitation. The time for asking, "Is it really me?" has passed. It is you, and every moment you delay your response, you prolong someone else's freedom. There is a lie that says waiting for the perfect moment is wisdom, but in the spirit realm, hesitation is often rebellion disguised as logic. God didn't ask if you were ready. He asked if you were willing. And the longer you wait, the more ground the enemy gains, not because he's strong, but because you refuse to move. This is not about rushing ahead blindly. This is about recognizing that the instruction has already been given. The moment passed when heaven whispered the assignment into your heart. From that second forward, every excuse became a delay. And every delay is dangerous, because delay dulls discernment. Delay breeds doubt. Delay gives room for the enemy to plant confusion. And what began as a calling begins to rot into complacency. It doesn't take long. One skipped prayer, one avoided fast, one ignored prompting, and suddenly you've normalized disobedience and started calling it peace. But deep down, you know when your spirit is unsettled. You know when you're pretending not to hear God because His voice is pulling you into the uncomfortable. You know when you've exchanged the fire for familiarity. And that tension in your soul, that's not anxiety. That's conviction. Hebrews chapter 3, verse 15 says, "Today, if you hear His voice, do not harden your hearts." Today, not tomorrow. Not after you get confirmation from 5 people. Not when your schedule clears. Not when the fear leaves. Today. Because every act of delayed obedience builds a wall around your spirit. And every wall blocks the next instruction. Until one day, you can't hear clearly anymore, not because God stopped speaking, but because you stopped responding. Chosen one. God doesn't demand perfection. He demands movement. You will never have all the answers. You will never feel qualified. You are being called based on faith, not credentials. And the enemy knows that. That's why he keeps you cycling through doubt, questioning if you're ready, wondering if you're really hearing God. He hopes you stay stuck in endless introspection while assignments go unfulfilled. But no more. You are being confronted with divine urgency, not to create panic, but to awaken purpose. You've had enough dreams, enough prophetic confirmations, enough word after word after word. Now is the time to act. It doesn't need to be big. It doesn't need to be perfect. Just start. Move your feet and let heaven adjust your steps. God can course-correct movement, but He cannot bless apathy. This is your moment to break the cycle, to reject every voice that told you to wait, to silence every lie that said you're not ready, to destroy every delay that has kept your mantle dormant. You don't need more clarity. You need more courage, because the ones who change history aren't the ones with the most answers. They're the ones who said yes first and figured out the details later. You don't have to know everything to start walking. You just need to be sure of who sent you. You were not created to play it safe. You weren't anointed to sit in comfort. You were chosen to move mountains. And mountains do not move for those who sit in silence. They move for those who speak, who declare, who step. Even now, God is watching your response, not your emotion, not your tears, but your response, because tears mean nothing without movement. Worship means nothing without obedience, and revelation means nothing if you're unwilling to apply it. This moment is a test. It's not about hype. It's not about feeling good. It's about whether you're going to delay again, or whether this is finally the moment you say, "No more waiting." On comment, "I will obey," below. 3 words, 1 decision. A prophetic declaration in front of heaven and hell that says, "This time, I move. This time, I respond. This time, I trust." On, not tomorrow. Now. Comment, "I will obey." Chosen one. Something holy is unfolding, and you are not watching it. You are part of it. You are not a spectator in this moment. You are the activated one, the summoned one, the commissioned one. There is a divine movement swelling in the unseen realm, and heaven has written your name into its script. This isn't coincidence. It's convergence. You're not just walking into a new season, you are being escorted into a new dimension of authority. The oil on your life is increasing. The weight of your presence is expanding. You may not feel different yet, but the atmosphere around you knows something has shifted. This is not just a personal breakthrough. This is a kingdom moment. You've survived too much to stay silent now. You've endured too long to play small. The time for hiding is over. This is the era of rising not with arrogance, but with authority. You're not waiting for permission anymore. Heaven already said yes. Everything in your life is about to accelerate, not randomly, but strategically. Doors are opening, but they're not doors you have to beg for. They're doors that recognize your mantle. Keys are being handed to you, not because you chased platforms, but because you stayed faithful in secret. The oil you carry was refined, not given. It was squeezed out of seasons you didn't understand. And now, God is about to display in public what He shaped in private. As we read in Revelation chapter 3, verse 8, "I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. No one can block what God is releasing through you. No voice can disqualify you. No resistance can reverse it. What's been written over your life in heaven cannot be erased on earth. And now, the doors you couldn't force open are swinging wide on their own because obedience is the key. But this is bigger than just one breakthrough. What's happening here is collective. A tribe is forming. A remnant is rising. A family of burning ones is finding each other, and you're one of them. This message, this space, this moment, it's a meeting place, not of personalities, but of purpose, not of hype, but of heavenly alignment. And if your spirit is alive right now, if your heart has been burning as these words flow, you know this is your tribe. You didn't stumble here. You were led. And because this is not just another channel, it's an altar. What you do next matters. Stay connected. Like this video, if it confirms what's been echoing in your spirit. Share it with another warrior who's been drifting. Someone who needs to remember who they are. Subscribe. Not for content, but for continuation. Because this movement is only just beginning. And yes, if you feel the tug to give, then sow with expectation, not out of pressure, but out of alignment. This space is not about chasing influence, it's about hosting presence. It's about building what God is breathing on. When you sow into that, you're not giving to a screen, you're sowing into a stream of fire. Every seed fuels the sound. Every act of support keeps the altar burning. But no matter what, know this: you're not just receiving, you're being reawakened. You are part of a generation of deliverers, a people set apart to carry presence, not polish, glory, not gimmicks, fire, not formulas. And the world is waiting not for more content, but for carriers of the Spirit. You are that carrier. And yes, you still feel the weight. You still have questions. But weight does not disqualify. Calling it confirms it. The heaviness is not proof you're broken. It's proof you're carrying something holy. And that weight is not crushing you. It's activating you. This is the turning point. You're not trying to become anymore. You already are. And now, you must move like it. Speak like it. Pray like it. Walk like it. And build like it. Don't let doubt drain your momentum. Don't let fear mute your fire. You've been too processed to shrink now. What's next will require more of you, but it will also release more through you. You've been called not just to experience the move of God, but to host it. Not just to witness revival, but to be revival. Chosen one. Everything that was stolen will be restored. Everything that was delayed will be redeemed. Everything that was silent will be sung over with fire. And you'll walk right into it, not as a stranger, but as a son, a daughter, a warrior, a remnant. You are one of the ones God kept in reserve for this exact moment in time. So rise, not in ego, but in eternal certainty. And if this word has met you, if your bones are trembling and your vision is clearing, stay with this space. Don't unplug from the flow, because what's coming next isn't just revelation, it's release. The tribe is real. The fire is real. And what God is doing here, it's just the beginning. Chosen one. You are entering a season where silence will no longer protect you. There was a time when hiding was holy, when God shielded you from exposure because the oil wasn't ready. The roots weren't deep enough, and the foundation still needed weight. But now, your silence is no longer preservation. It has become hesitation, and heaven is calling you out of it. There comes a point when the quiet becomes compromise, when God's word in you is so alive, so pressing, so prophetic, that to withhold, it becomes disobedience. You are not meant to bury what was breathed into you. You are not meant to mute the mantle resting on your shoulders. You are not meant to whisper what heaven thundered into your bones. This is the hour of divine accountability. You've prayed for more. You fasted for direction. You've asked to be used. But now that the instruction has come, now that the weight is on you, will you respond? You're not waiting on another confirmation. You're not waiting on another open door. The door has already been declared. The instruction has already been sent. What's left now is your response. And here's what most won't tell you. Delayed obedience can move you out of season. The longer you linger in hesitation, the more distance you create between you and what was prepared for you. Yes, grace is real. Yes, God is merciful. But there comes a moment where heaven steps back not to punish, but to expose the choice. Hebrews chapter 10. Verse 26 says, "For if we deliberately keep on sinning after we have received the knowledge of the truth, no sacrifice for sins is left." This isn't about fear, it's about reverence. You've been entrusted with too much to play casual. You've seen too much, heard too much, been through too much to return to the passivity that once disguised itself as peace. You don't get to sit in this anymore. You don't get to delay your answer to God. Because when you do, the fire begins to fade. The clarity begins to blur. And what was once an urgent call becomes background noise in a busy life. But deep inside, your spirit still knows. You're not like them. You never were. The call on your life carries weight. The kind of weight that rearranges families, realigns bloodlines, and reawakens entire cities. You were not called to function, you were called to ignite. And ignition requires friction. That's why the resistance has been relentless. That's why every time you try to settle into average, your spirit starts to ache. You can't sit still in places God never sent you. You can't feel peace in partnerships heaven never approved. And now that you've tasted what real alignment feels like, you can never again pretend comfort is enough. You are not allowed to go back. There are assignments on the other side of your obedience. People who will only find freedom when you step fully into your voice. Chains that will only break when your feet touch certain territories. Cycles that will only shatter when you pray what you've been too afraid to say. This is why the fight has been so fierce. The enemy isn't reacting to your past. He's trying to stop your next. He's not haunted by what you've done. He's terrified of what you're about to release. That's why the confusion came. That's why the discouragement hit. That's why your confidence felt like it crumbled. Because if he can keep you still, he keeps you harmless. But you weren't born to be harmless. You were born to carry heaven into dry places. Your prayers carry fire. Your words carry weight. Your very presence carries prophecy. You don't have time to wrestle with doubt anymore. That season has expired. You don't have space to replay what went wrong, who walked away, or what could have been. Your focus must sharpen. Your spirit must lead. Your feet must move. God is watching your decision, not your emotion. The earth is groaning for the sons and daughters of God to be revealed, and heaven is saying, "You are one of them. Now, rise." I know this is your moment of clarity, a holy reckoning, not for applause, not for recognition, but because destiny is calling, and the price of your silence is too high now. No more shrinking, no more running, no more hiding behind the illusion of not ready. No, you've been ready longer than you think. Now heaven is demanding movement. Chosen one. The crown is calling. Not a crown made of gold and applause, but a crown forged in obedience, tested by fire, and sealed by heaven itself. This isn't just your moment, it's your ordination. You've been walking through the preparation, but now the summons has been released, and the throne room is watching. Everything around you is shifting. Everything inside you is stirring. This isn't pressure, it's prophecy. The weight you feel is the pull of destiny. The stretching you feel is heaven, expanding your capacity. What you're sensing is not rando, it's divine convergence. A holy appointment, etched in eternity before time began. Your crown is not optional. It is not decorative. It is evidence that you survived what was sent to destroy you, that you stayed when others ran, that you burned when others dimmed, that you obeyed in silence, when no one was clapping, when no one understood, And now, heaven says, come forth. You've walked through the wilderness. You've danced on ashes. You've carried pain that became oil. And now you are being crowned with glory that only those who endured can carry. Psalm chapter 103. Verse 4 declares, who redeems your life from destruction, who crowns you with loving kindness and tender mercies. This is your redemption season. But it's not just about what you're coming out of. It's about what you're stepping into. You're not just escaping the fire, you're emerging carrying it. You are not a survivor. You are a carrier, a messenger, a royal priest, a marked one. That crown doesn't just represent victory, it represents responsibility. Because with this anointing comes assignment. This oil requires discipline. This mantle demands movement. You can't wear what heaven is giving and live like you used to. The crown rests on consecrated heads. You've been refined, so you can be trusted. And God trusts you now. That's why He's releasing the weight. That's why your clarity is returning. That's why your spiritual language is shifting. Because He's handing you access that few are permitted to carry. And you'll know it's real, not by applause, but by the weight of heaven that follows you into every room. Not by titles, but by the trembling that happens in the spirit when you pray. Not by platform, but by the way demons scatter when your feet hit the ground. The oil has cost you too much to live casually now. This crown cannot be worn while entertaining compromise. The realm you are entering requires purity, sensitivity, and complete submission. Because you're not just stepping into influence, you're stepping into inheritance. You're not a random voice in the crowd. You are a remnant of the royal line. What you say carries weight. What you touch carries transformation. And what you build will last not because of your strength, but because of the seal God has placed on your life. This is why the warfare intensified, because the enemy saw the crown long before you did. He tried to destroy you in childhood, tried to crush your confidence, tried to paralyze your progress, because he knew if you ever reached this moment, it would be over for his plans. But here you are, still breathing, still burning, still believing. And now, you're not just believing for yourself. You're about to become the reason someone else believes again. You'll speak, and lost ones will come home. You'll move, and cities will shift. You'll pray, and atmospheres will break. Because this crown isn't just for display, it's for dominion. If you feel this deep in your spirit, if something in your bones is vibrating with recognition, then don't hold it in. Respond. Let heaven and hell both witness your agreement. Comment 777 below. 777 is heaven's number of divine alignment, divine order, divine sealing. It's not just a number, it's your response. You're not just receiving the crown, you're stepping into what it means. Chosen one. There is a solitude that follows the truly anointed, a divine separation that most people won't understand. And yet, it was in that separation that heaven did its most sacred work in you. You've spent seasons wondering why you always seem to walk alone, why the deeper your calling became, the smaller your circle grew, why relationships dissolved, not in chaos, but in quiet. Unexplainable disconnection. But now, you see it. It wasn't rejection. It was refinement. It wasn't punishment. It was protection. God could not allow you to be influenced by voices that would dilute your destiny, so He allowed distance. Not because you were unworthy of community, but because he was preparing you for covenant. There is a tribe for you. Yes, but the tribe can only find you once. You've been fully set apart. And so, you walked alone, not out of bitterness, but out of obedience. There were moments you craved companionship. You wanted someone to see the weight you carried, to hear the cries behind your worship, to understand the burden behind your silence. But God said, "Not yet," because if the wrong people had joined you in your fragile becoming, they would have destroyed the purity of your oil. And so, He hid you. Even when you wanted visibility, He kept you veiled. Even when you begged for understanding, He gave you revelation instead. Even when you reached for people, He allowed your arms to return empty, not because He was cruel, but because He was carving something sacred. Your loneliness was never without purpose. In the isolation, your ears became trained to hear only Him. In the silence, your roots dug deep. In the absence of applause, you learned to be moved only by His presence. And now, you carry a depth that can't be taught, a stillness that cannot be shaken, a discernment that pierces through pretense. You've become the kind of vessel that heaven trusts, not because you were perfect, but because you were willing to be alone if it meant staying aligned. You see, chosen ones walk a narrow road. Not everyone can go where you're going. Not everyone is permitted to hear what you hear. Not everyone is assigned to walk beside you. And when you try to force people into that space, it fractures what heaven is forming. So yes, the road was lonely, but it was holy, as we read in John chapter 15, verse 19. If you were of the world would love you as its own, but because you are not of the world hates you. You've never belonged to the crowd. That's why you've always felt tension in places others found comfort. That's why your spirit resisted compromise, even when your flesh was tired. That's why, even in rooms full of people, you felt the pull to go deeper. You were never meant to fit in. You were born to stand apart. That separation trained you to live by conviction instead of consensus. You didn't have a committee guiding your obedience. You had the Holy Spirit. And that sensitivity you carry now, that's the result of quiet seasons others never saw. You've learned to walk through doors without needing an entourage. You've learned to intercede without needing affirmation. You've learned to worship without waiting for a crowd. You've become dangerous to the enemy, not because of how loud you are, but because of how rooted you are. And now, heaven is positioning you not to be popular, but to be precise. You will speak with clarity because you listened in silence. You will lead with compassion because you were once led through crushing. You will build with discernment because you were once broken by deception. That loneliness trained you to know the difference between real and counterfeit, between presence and performance, between alignment and attention. You can smell manipulation now. You can feel dishonor before a word is spoken. Your spirit picks up on frequencies others ignore. Because your walk with God has fine-tuned your perception. You're not paranoid. You're prophetic. And the time you spent alone wasn't a waste. It was a consecration. The same God who called Moses to the wilderness, Elijah to the cave, and Jesus to the mountain called you into isolation, not to break you, but to build you into a vessel who cannot be moved by wind or waves. You don't need crowds anymore. You need clouds, glory clouds, presence-soaked atmospheres, divine moments where heaven whispers and your spirit responds. That's where you live now. in the realm of revelation, in the current of heaven's voice. So don't despise what you walked through. Don't wish away the wilderness. Don't regret the seasons that stripped you of comfort, because those were the days that qualified you. They were your classroom, your proving ground, your altar, chosen one. The loneliness wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of your unveiling. You are being revealed now, not because you sought it, but because you endured what most would have escaped. And when your tribe finds you, they won't need explanations. They'll recognize the same fire in your eyes, the same purity in your sound, the same weight in your silence. They won't compete, they'll complement. They won't question your depth, they'll honor it. But even before they come, know this: you're not empty, you're not forgotten, and you were never truly alone. Because every step of the way, God was there forming, molding, speaking. And now, the solitude has served its purpose. You are ready, chosen one. What you're walking through right now is not the end, it's a transition. It may feel like silence. It may look like stagnation. But what's truly happening is divine positioning. You've been asking, why does it feel like I'm stuck? But heaven is saying, you're being set. End one, set like a cornerstone, set like an arrow pulled back before release, set like a foundation laid before the glory comes. This season is not punishment. It is precise, intentional, heaven-engineered preparation. You're not being delayed, you're being aligned. God is not reacting to your life. He's orchestrating it. And in this sacred moment, it's crucial that you don't misinterpret the silence. Just because you can't trace His hand doesn't mean you've lost His presence. Just because the doors haven't opened yet doesn't mean the vision was false. Faith isn't built when everything is moving. Faith is forged when nothing is shifting, but you keep standing anyway. This is what makes you different. Others fold under silence. You listen in it. Others retreat when the blessing doesn't show up fast. You stay. You remain rooted. You let the word anchor you even when emotion tries to sway you. Isaiah chapter 40. Verse 31 reminds us, "But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles." You've been in a waiting room, but you haven't been wasting. You've been renewing. You've been receiving clarity in layers. Sometimes through fire. Sometimes through silence. Sometimes through the ache of letting go. But always with purpose. The enemy has whispered that God forgot you, that He's moved on, that the calling expired. But what He never told you is that the deeper the calling, the longer the carving, and what you're carrying requires precision, foundation, maturity. That's what this season has been, a sanctified construction site. Heaven has been building something in you that won't collapse under pressure. You're not being bypassed, you're being built to last. You've been stripped of distractions, disconnected from people who no longer fit your future, disoriented by doors that shut without warning. But what you couldn't see in the moment was this: God was narrowing your focus so you could finally hear clearly. He wasn't being cruel. He was cleaning house. You couldn't afford to enter the next with old weights still tied to your ankles. You couldn't carry forward the voices that fed your insecurity. You couldn't blend in with the crowd and expect to carry a mantle made for holy disruption. So God isolated you, silenced the noise, disarmed the false alignments, and in that sacred quiet, He whispered things into your soul that no platform could have ever taught you. You've been trained in the secret. And now, when others are scrambling for affirmation, you stand anchored in revelation. You know who you are, not because a prophet told you, but because the presence revealed it to you in the midnight hour. That's what makes you dangerous now. You don't flinch at storms. You don't chase applause. You don't shift with the trends. You are rooted, established, a tree planted by rivers of living water. Your fruit doesn't show up in every season, but your roots never wither. This season has been brutal, but it has also been beautiful. It stripped you down to essence, to the core of your calling, to the naked truth of your obedience. And in that honesty, in that vulnerable space, you found a purity that can't be faked. You stopped performing. You started hearing. You stopped striving. You started flowing. And now, the positioning is almost complete. You're not just being prepared to walk into destiny. You're being prepared to sustain it. Because God is not interested in moments. He's building movements. He's not handing you a temporary breakthrough. He's planting a legacy. But legacy takes time. It takes structure. It takes stripping away every illusion of control so that only trust remains. And chosen one. That's what you've built. You've built trust. With every no. With every unseen yes. With every fast when no one watched. With every word spoken in faith when fear said, "Stay silent." You've proven your posture, and heaven has taken note. Don't despise the season you're in. Don't resent the positioning. Don't curse the silence. Because this is where kings are formed. This is where prophets are refined. This is where warriors learn to wield their weapons with precision. And when the release comes, you'll move with clarity, with confidence, with consecration, not to impress, not to conquer, but to restore what was broken, to plant what was abandoned, to redig the ancient wells and make room for the rain again. So, breathe. You're not being punished. You're being positioned. Chosen one. The tribe is awakening, quietly, powerfully, one by one. The sealed ones are stirring from long spiritual slumber. There is a shaking beneath the surface, not driven by emotion, not born from noise, but ignited by divine summons. And now, the fire inside you is matching the sound of heaven outside of you. This is confirmation. You are not alone. For years you thought you were the only one who saw through the distractions, the only one whose spirit burned when others seemed numb, the only one who couldn't stay asleep, even when apathy was comfortable. But the truth is, there are others, and they're waking up, scattered across nations, hidden in cities and wildernesses. Our voices like yours marked, silenced, shaped. They were broken, not buried, isolated, not irrelevant, preserved, not passed over. And now the same spirit that stirred you is stirring them. The remnant is remembering. God has not just been preparing you. He's been preparing your tribe. The ones who won't compete with your fire but feed it. The ones who won't mock your hunger but mirror it. The ones who speak the language of glory without needing translation. They are not coming, they are already responding. Romans chapter 8. Verse 19 speaks to this moment. For the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. Oh, this is not about a movement built on personality or performance. It's not about followers, filters, or stage lights. This is about weight, about presence, about purity. And you, chosen one, are part of the unveiling. You're not just a spectator of revival, you're its carrier. You've wondered why your heart won't stop burning, why ordinary no longer satisfies, why compromise nauseates you. It's because your DNA is prophetic. You're wired to build altars, not just attend services. You don't just worship, you war. You don't just survive, you ignite. And now, God is positioning voices like yours on the front lines, not to impress the world, but to awaken it. But make no mistake, this is not the time to move alone. The fire on your life needs a place to burn beside others. And if this space, this message, this moment has met you in your depths, then you've found an altar that reflects your flame. This isn't just another video. It's a signal, a spiritual call to arms, a divine flare shot into the sky to let every burning one know you're not crazy, and you're not isolated. The others are awakening too, and we are gathering. So stay connected. Like this video not for vanity, but to keep heaven's algorithms flowing in your life. Share it not for clout, but because someone else's breakthrough might depend on your obedience. Subscribe not for content, but for continuity. There is more coming. Sharper words, heavier revelation, divine directives for a rising generation. And if this space has poured into your spirit, if it has been a well for your dry season, a fire starter for your quiet surrender, then sow into it. Not out of pressure, out of prophetic alignment. When you pour into the altar that feeds your soul, you're not tipping a ministry, you're partnering with the glory it carries. Whether you give a seed or share the link, every act becomes a signal in the spirit, a sound that echoes, I'm one of them, I'm awake, I'm ready. Now, if this word pierced you, if your chest is trembling because your spirit knows, then write this below, I'm fully awake. This is not a phrase, it's a declaration. It tells heaven, I'm aligned. It tells hell, I'm no longer sleeping. It tells your future, I have arrived. Now, the tribe is gathering, the sealed are stirring, and your voice, it was never meant to stay silent. You are one of them. You are not early. You are not late. You are right on time. Chosen one. You're almost there. That trembling in your spirit, the pressure surrounding your days, the silent war in your nights, these aren't signs of failure. They are the final contractions before birth. You are closer than you've ever been. And that's exactly why it feels so intense. The enemy doesn't fight what isn't a threat. He doesn't waste ammunition on the lukewarm. He reserves his fiercest weapons for those standing on the edge of breakthrough. You've been asking why things got harder right when you committed deeper. Why the attacks sharpened when your focus finally aligned. Why old wounds suddenly resurfaced. Why strange warfare has appeared from nowhere. It's not random. It's strategic. The darkness senses what's coming even before you do. And it's terrified. But here's the truth. You've already crossed the line in the spirit. What you're feeling now is the last gasp of resistance before release. What's ahead of you is not just the next chapter. It's the fulfillment of everything that's been spoken, everything that's been wept over, everything that's been waiting in heaven's storehouse with your name on it. Galatians chapter 6. Verse 9 speaks directly into this moment. Let us not grow weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap, if we do not faint. Oh, you are in due season, and fainting is not an option. But this kind of reaping doesn't come easy. It requires holding your position when your mind wants to collapse. It demands that your spirit overrides your emotions. It means that when every lie says, "You missed it," your heart must whisper back, "I'm still chosen." 1. There are miracles on the other side of this pressure, but they aren't just blessings, they are confirmations. They are heaven's way of saying, "I saw everything, and I did not forget." 1. What's coming isn't just a reward, it's a reveal. You will begin to understand why the process was so intense, why the loneliness was prolonged, why the silence cut so deep. You'll begin to see how every delay was a setup for alignment, how every door that closed preserved you for the one that would launch you. And in that moment, it will make sense. But right now, in this space between promise and fulfillment, you must hold your ground. You must speak what you know, even when you can't feel it. You must walk by the fire of conviction when the lights of emotion go dim. This is where your mantle is proven, not when everything's clear, but when everything's uncertain and you still don't back down. This kind of obedience is rare, but you carry it because you didn't start this journey to quit in the valley. You started it to reach the summit. And what you don't know is that the summit is closer than it looks. Many fold here, right before the breaking, right before the shift, because the pressure becomes louder than the promise. But you won't fold. Not after all you've survived. Not after all you've carried. You didn't walk through the fire just to stop at the smoke. You didn't endure Gethsemane just to avoid resurrection. You are carrying something that's bigger than you. That's why it's been so heavy. That's why the distractions have come dressed as opportunities. That's why spiritual fatigue has whispered, "Settle here." But something in your belly won't let you settle. Something keeps pushing you forward. That's not stubbornness. That's destiny. And even now, angels are being dispatched, not just to surround you, but to partner with you. You are not alone in this crossing. Heaven is watching. Hell is trembling. And earth is groaning, waiting for you to emerge fully as who you were always meant to be. You're almost there, not just to break through, but to becoming. Keep your posture, keep your purity, keep your prayer life alive. Even when it feels dry, even when it sounds repetitive, even when nothing seems to shift, keep pressing, because sometimes what looks like silence is just the sound of walls falling slowly. They will fall. The moment will shift. The oil will pour. And when it does, you'll know this is what the pain was for. You didn't suffer in vain. You didn't fight in vain. And you're not pressing for nothing. What's ahead is glory, not abstract, not metaphorical, but real, tangible, earth-shaking glory. And you, chosen one, will carry it. Chosen one. This is it. The moment your entire journey has been leading toward. Every whispered prayer, every quiet battle, every unseen act of obedience, it was all counting down to now. You are not at the beginning. You are not halfway through. You have arrived at the edge of fulfillment. And not just your personal promise, but a prophetic convergence. Heaven is sealing its final tribe. Not the scattered, but the assembled. Not the unsure, but the anchored. Those who didn't just believe, they became. Those who didn't just shout, they stood. And you are one of them. You've been refined like gold, not to shine for man's applause, but to reflect heaven's image. Everything unnecessary has been burned away. What's left is pure. What's left is holy. What's left is ready. And as the final tribe is gathered, there is no confusion. Every spirit that bears the mark knows. It's not a voice. It's a resonance. Something unshakable in your core that responds when heaven calls. You don't need to be convinced. You just know. You were born for this hour. Not to stand back and watch, but to step forward and war. Not to wait for another invitation, but to occupy what was already assigned to you. The time of preparation is closing. The moment of manifestation is opening. And now, the sealed ones are taking their positions. Revelation chapter 7, verse 3 speaks of them. Do not harm the land, or the sea, or the trees, until we put a seal on the foreheads of the servants of our God. That seal isn't just protection, it's identification. It's heaven saying, this one is mine. That's you. Marked, chosen, prepared in fire, ready in silence, unveiled in obedience. The final tribe is not the most talented. It is the most tested. It is not the loudest. It is the most loyal. Loyal to the call. Loyal to the process. Loyal to the fire. Even when it's scorched. Loyal to truth. Even when it isolated. And now, the loyal are being lifted, not into comfort, but into commission. They're being placed in families, in cities, in nations, in atmospheres that have been barren, waiting for a voice that carries weight. That voice is yours. You are no longer hiding. You are no longer hesitating. You are no longer hoping you heard right. You did. You do. And now you walk not in wondering, but in witnessing of the power of God moving through the very vessel the enemy tried to bury. This is the end of your wilderness, and the beginning of your witness. What comes next will not look like what you've seen. It will not be safe. It will not be explainable. It will be marked by glory, by fire, by heaven's unmistakable fingerprint, and the world will not understand, but the tribe will recognize, because this final tribe has been prepared in secret, but launched in power, not for show, but for shaking, not for clout, but for kingdom. You found your sound. You found your stance. And now, heaven is calling you by Naminot as a stranger, but as a soldier. You are not who you were. You are who you were, always meant to become. You are part of the final tribe, chosen one. If this message lit a fire inside you, if it spoke to places you thought no one saw them, don't let it stop here. You were drawn to this for a reason. The same spirit that led you here is the same spirit confirming you are part of this final tribe. This wasn't just a message. This was a mirror. You didn't just listen, you remembered. So stay connected to the sound. Like this video, not for vanity, but to keep the flame visible for others, still searching. Share it with someone who's been drifting in silence. You never know how one message can reroute an entire destiny. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the next word. This isn't a platform, it's an altar. And God is still speaking. And if this space has been a lifeline, a push in your spirit, consider sowing into it. Not out of pressure, but out of alignment. When you invest into what feeds your soul, you're not tipping content, you're partnering with heaven's work. But above all, respond. Let heaven know you received the word. Let hell know you're not turning back. Drop a comment below that says what your spirit is screaming right now, whether it's, I'm ready, I believe, or I'm awake. This space is your confirmation, and your comment, it's your declaration. This tribe is real. The fire is spreading, and your place in this movement has already been carved by the hand of God. Don't just witness it. Walk in it. We're just getting started.